right, so before we get started with our art project, I have some coins here, and our project today is going to be an embossing project. Now, embossing means that you are carving surfaces to create a raised portion. So I want you to look at this quarter right here, and if you have one at home, you could even look at it in person. But notice how the shape of the face and the letters are embossed, meaning that they are raised above the surface. And you can look at any coin and you can see that. So if you have coins at home, I want you to just do a quick exercise before we get started by taking a small piece of foil, putting it over the coin, and then taking your nail and going back and forth really lightly. And by doing this, this is going to leave the imprint of the coin on the foil. So you can see it's left the imprint of the quarter. And I can do that for these other ones too. And essentially, we're going to be creating our own embossed pattern onto the foil. So see how you can see the different lines and portions that were raised. So now that we've talked about what embossing is, let's get started on our art project. Today, the supplies that you're gonna need is a regular sheet of paper. It can be copy paper, notebook paper, whatever paper you have on hand, a piece of aluminum foil, a pencil, scissors, and one marker. We're not going to color with it, so it doesn't matter the color. So grab those supplies and let's get started. All right, so to get started, we are going to need to make our paper into a square. So to do that, you're gonna take one end, the corner, and you are going to bring it down until it aligns with the bottom of your paper. And then you're gonna fold it like that. And with your pencil, trace a line. And that is going to give you your square. So from there, we're gonna cut this extra portion off. Okay, so now that we have our square, I want you to design your own symmetrical pattern. Now remember, symmetrical means that it's the same on both sides. And so I'm gonna teach you a little trick. By folding our paper in half, I'm going to draw a pattern on one side, and then when I'm done, I'm gonna show you how you can transfer it over. So work on drawing your pattern. Remember, pattern is a combination of line and shapes. Okay, so now that I have my pattern drawn in pencil, I'm going to open up my paper and I'm going to now fold it to the other side because I am now gonna take my marker, that doesn't matter what color it is, because I'm just gonna use it to press down, and I want this pattern to transfer to the other side. So I'm going to press it down and I'm gonna take the cap of the marker, I'm gonna put my pointer finger on top, and I'm gonna start pressing down so that the pencil lead starts transferring. When I open it up, I'll see a faint line of my pattern from this side. So if you don't see pencil marks, it probably means you pressed too light on the other side. So you'll probably want to go back over and try it again. But from here, I'm going to trace over the lines that transferred. So now I have my symmetrical pattern that is the same on both sides, which is what symmetrical means. So now we get to start our embossing. So for this part, you're gonna wanna make sure your pencil is not sharp. So it should be pretty dull after doing your design. So make sure you don't sharpen it again because we're gonna need a dull pencil so it doesn't rip through the foil. And then for here, we wanna make sure that the foil is the same size as our pattern. So I'm gonna stick my piece of paper here and I'm gonna trace around and then cut off the edges. As our paper, I want you to notice the foil. There is one side that is really shiny, and then there's another side that's a little bit more matte. We want our embossing to come through on the more matted side. So we are going to actually be drawing on this side. So what you're gonna do is you're going to place your design on top of the foil. You're gonna line up the corners. Okay, so then from here, you're gonna take your dull pencil and you are going to retrace all of your lines. That my design started to be transferred to my foil. And then if I turn it over, I have a faint picture of the design. So now to create my embossing, remember embossing means that I'm creating a raised surface. I'm gonna need to, again, with my dull pencil, go back over these lines, pressing down pretty hard so that when I turn it over, I can see it on the other side. So I'm gonna go ahead and retrace all my lines. So now that you've retraced it, you can see that you have a simple embossing, just like we did with the coins. So that is how you do a simple embossing. I'm gonna take it one step further. And if you have these supplies, then great, you can follow along. If not, this is a great embossing. But if you have glue, some yarn, and optional would be some Sharpies to color it in. It has to be Sharpies because you can't color with washable markers on the foil without, it won't dry because this is a slick surface. So if you have those materials, grab them and follow along. Okay, so for this first part, you want the foil to be on the shiny side, the side that we drew on. And you're gonna take your glue and you are going to trace around your lines with just a thin piece or a thin little line of glue. And start with one shape at a time because you don't want the glue to dry. And then you're gonna take your yarn and you're going to gently set it on the glue. And so I'm gonna do that for all of the shapes that I carved in earlier. yarn glued on, I want you to notice one thing. I did simplify my pattern a little bit. I didn't add these little circles or these triangles. This zigzag actually became more of a wavy line just because it was a little tighter with the glue. It was harder to get those tight spaces. So from here, what we are going to do is we are actually going to glue. We're actually going to set this foil on top of our paper. And then you're going to take your pencil and you're going to use the eraser and you're going to start pressing in between that negative space, in between where you put the yarn. Okay, so once you start to see that embossing in between, I'm gonna take a black Sharpie and I'm gonna outline the spaces around the yarn. Okay, so all the area that has the yarn, the part that's embossed, I don't want you to color that part in. I want you to keep that part silver, but go ahead and color in all the negative space from the areas that are just flat. Embossing plate with foil and just simple supplies. Embossing's been around since the 15th century. It's how we create stamps and seals. And I want you to look around your house and just when you're out during the day and see what other forms of embossing you can find. And I cannot wait to see what you created.